Hi everybody, we are group 10, no name, what's our name?
Atomos.
Group SALT, there we go. Some of you may know that one, but we are making Atomos, I don't know how to pronounce that. It's like live up there. And I'm Mark, this is David, Allison, Priyanka, and Spencer. So what is Atomos we didn't see last time or don't remember? It's a chemistry-based puzzle side-scrolling game. I hate chemistry, but it's probably kind of fun to do. You can think of infinite possibility of puzzles. So you defeat enemies and solve puzzles, like I said. You play as this guy right here, Archimede. Amazing, he's cute. He is a ball of energy essentially, and he has the ability to collect subatomic particles and evolve, and then combine and solve. So he starts off with energy, so you can go to hydrogen, helium, lithium, anything, any element you want, make a lot of compounds, and then go through different puzzles and enemies with an intuitive sense of the compound. Okay, so let's talk about some of the workings and how the game works. This is just a screenshot from our game. You can see our green middle there. Like I said, you collect neutrons, protons, electrons. I don't know which means with color, but they're scattered throughout the world. They're not this common. I think I just had them randomly spawn. That's why there's so many at this point, but they're not supposed to spawn many. And also you have your health bar and your half-life bar. The half-life bar doesn't currently do anything right now. By Monday, it's going to limit the amount of times you can use your element, but right now it's kind of infinite. We kind of have everything hotkeyed for demo purposes and testing, but come Monday, we'll have it flushed out to where you're limited by the number of the amount of half-life you get. And half-life goes up by the amount of neutrons you collect, which is not scientifically accurate, but it has some base to it. Okay, so talk about kind of the inner workings of the code. We have this game object class. Similar, I think, the elements destruction. Was it elements destruction? Yeah, they had that too. It's kind of funny that our games are quite similar, but we never spoke really. So that's kind of interesting. And the game object class handles, it's like a physical object pretty much. Position, velocity, handles the timer, it takes in the game time, it takes in the game itself so you can know the state of the game. You have your images in there, and also can handle like animation. And things that extend from that are player class, which is like the player you got to control. All the AIs extend from that because they all have these properties. Items have all these properties. Items are just something you'll use, your character uses, not quite an AI. And then like the particles, like some of the particles, they kind of are on the screen too, because they have these properties. So pretty much anything that's in the game, any like object in the game is a game object, not including like the HUD, because that's just a different class itself. So the whole point of this project, this game, is so that we can evolve into multiple compounds and elements, and have a vast number of these to solve a vast number of puzzles. Now, we didn't want to have to have these giant complex if statements and case statements to figure out what elements do what to what enemies and what puzzles. So essentially, the way that we designed it was that you have this atomic entity, and the player has a current atomic entity, and when you evolve, you create a new instance of this atomic entity, and they kind of intertwine. The player constructs the atomic entity and passes itself into the atomic entity. And the atomic entity has access to all the player's position, velocity, images, anything he wants into the player, has all access to that. And by doing so, we can design each atomic entity completely independent of every single other atomic entity. We just have a basic abstract class that has idle animation, an action, whenever you click the action button, what the action does, D-action, I think evol and evil. So like I said, yeah, allows anybody to really not know the system entirely. To just any one of you can really spend 10 minutes and make something pretty reasonable without the knowledge of the whole system. You just got to know how to really manipulate the position and velocity vectors and things like that. So this is just a code example of that. For instance, the action method inside the player occurs when you push the action button. This is not the exact code, it's just an exact pseudocode of this. And it'll do current entity of that action. So for helium, it may be, this is just some random thing I made up that wouldn't actually do this. The player scale would increase by 5. That's just something I made up. If it was hydrogen, it would decrease by 5. So whenever I push the action button, it'll send it to the atomic entity, which will then control the player. So that way, all the actions are independent of all the atomic entities. So you can make water shoot water, fire, spin around circles, whatever the heck you want. So, all right. So we have a player FSM. This is kind of how the player goes. It's like a spawn. It's just the initialization state, spawn state, the state. And we have an idle state, which will trigger the idle animation of whatever the current entity is. So if you're a gas, you're going to kind of float. If you're metal, you're not really going to float. Doesn't really make sense. So you kind of just sit there. We have a move, an action, and idle. So you can go to any of these from the idle state. The move state, the idle state has priority or precedence over the action state, which is higher than move state. So you can move an action at the same time, but your state will report action. And if you're using an item, your state will report item. And if you're dead, then you're dead. Anybody can go to the dead state from there. So the way damage works in this game is, like I said, we wanted to be able to, we didn't want to directly affect the players, the enemy's damage or HP when we trigger some sort of event, because the enemy, we want to make the enemy aware of what type of damage it is so he can apply it to himself based off of what element he is. So we don't have to, we can once again write all the enemies independently. So what the entities do is they create these damage objects, which is passed to this damage, it's like this list in the game, and that will, whenever it collides, it'll look for all the enemies, and when it collides with an enemy, it'll pass it to the enemy. And the enemy will apply the damage to himself. So, for instance, if it's a fire-type enemy, and it collides with a water-type object, it'll pass, the enemy will get past the object, it'll apply damage to itself, and it'll have a statement say, like, the enemy can have a statement say, if damage object is of type water, then do like 20 times damage, else only do normal damage of the object itself. So now we're going to go through some of our puzzles here. So there's kind of an inside joke, and I know a lot of you probably know it by now, some of you at least, that for quite a while in our game, the only damage object we had was salt, because it was kind of in the preliminary stages. And so we were putting in a lot of puzzles, or enemies and stuff like that, and a lot of them are salt related, for the time being. And also, since salt was the only thing we had salting, everything just like get decimated by salt. So you essentially hold down the salt button or the action button while in salt and just run through the level. And it's a funny inside joke. And we actually recorded me saying salt because as I was testing, I would constantly say salt just in my mind. So when you push the salt button now, it's recording of me actually saying salt. We're not going to put that in the game, but it's just a joke. Okay. So let's talk about some of these enemies here. The ice spikes. What are some things that defeats ice? Salt. Salt, yes. What else? Okay, well, fire's not really, it's not really a specific element. Things can be on fire, and it's like the energy release. But what are some elements and compounds that create lots of heat?
Hydrogen.
Well, hydrogen you have to have like a flame. I mean, lots of things have a flame.
Thermite.
Oh, thermite, yes! How'd you know that, dude? So, some puzzles, I think Stephen came up with this one when he was originally in the group, but he's not in the group anymore, so he didn't give me credit. So like I said, salt and thermite are solutions. We can add any number to these, and it's very easy to change the code. We don't have to add a lot of statements. Essentially, we would go to this ice spike class and say, if the damage object is of type whatever, then it will take this amount of damage. If not, then don't take any damage, something like that. So it's really easy to change code when we add elements. So fire line, what's that fire?
Salt.
Not everything is salt, okay? This doesn't make any sense. Okay, what's that fire?
Water.
Water, and what's another one? What's a fire extinguisher?
Gasoline.
Gasoline? What's a fire gasoline? CO2? You ever heard of CO2 extinguishers? Okay, so water or CO2 could be a solution to this puzzle. And we can add any other fireproofing compound or element we want in the future. And snail, salt. And what else? Hammer. He's a small guy, so you just beat him with a hammer, right? He might not work so well with a fire gun. So the thing that would make a hammer, iron. So maybe an iron. So if you're iron, you can make a hammer. I think it's currently we don't have iron now, we have steel hammer. So forget the iron, you get steel now. Wait, that's supposed to say steel and not iron. But that is iron plus carbon, which is okay. So you have to combine the two to make steel. Understand? Okay, so here's some of the obstacles. This is a broken bridge of sorts with a kind of a hole in the map you can't cross over. And we see this electrical panel here. And so we see the frayed wires. How would we solve the frayed wires? Salt. Okay, realistically, if you needed to connect an electrical thing together, what would you use? Copper. What else?
Puddle of water.
You don't put water in electronics, you can. But what are conducting elements? Gold. You can conduct with gold, you can conduct with silver, so essentially copper would be the most obvious choice and probably be the best one because the cheapest essentially as far as subatomic particles. So copper, gold, silver, platinum, they all conduct electricity pretty well. Obviously copper would be the best choice. Okay, so here's a bed of spikes and a deflated balloon. Don't you say salt.
Salt.
Helium and hydrogen. Okay, so those are, and what's another one that makes air? Thermites go up. What?
Hot air.
Hot air, exactly. So we can have a hot air balloon. So there could be oxygen, there could be a flame you have to ignite. We have that in the works right now, but currently this one just works off helium and hydrogen. So let's see the hydrogen. Okay, next one. All right, so our AI, this is an AI concept of AI. We have state machines and position tracking in a sense. We have time?
You can run a couple more minutes.
Okay, all right. You guys have to go. Okay, so we have a couple of states for different things. We have an idle state, a pursue state, attack state. Essentially, the pursue state is triggered by this aggro box, this detection box, that if you're in, you can set it to whatever size you want for any AI. And if you're in that range, it will chase you. And then once it gets to the attack box range, it will start the attack state and start attacking. And then also we have the position tracking where it will essentially get your distance vector, this middle thing here, and normalize it, and then you can apply a speed step. So whatever speed you want the AI, you can set differently for every AI, and it will make them run faster or slower depending on what you set it. We also have the color map collisions. It's very simple. If it's this color, you convert it. That color, you can. And also we have collision boxes. That's just another feature of it. So I'm going to skip that for running time. Okay, and one last thing we did, since this is a kind of an educational thing, you may not know everything about chemistry. So if you're a newbie to chemistry, or you're like 4, you can use the hint boxes. And they have, each AI has this unique hint that you specify the hint as a string, and you pass it to the hint box. And whenever you run into this enemy, he will give you hints. So you can defeat me with something you find on your kitchen table, which is yes. Okay, so I just picked that one. All right, so I don't think we have time for a demo because we're out of time. Maybe I can show it Wednesday. I'd like to show it to you guys, but I don't want to keep you waiting. So Wednesday, one day you'll see it, or Wednesday you'll see it.
Any quick questions?
How much thermite?
How much thermite?
Yeah.
What do you mean? In testing the game? No.
Yeah.
Okay, let's thank them.